Hey there everyone, and welcome to some more RPG Horror Story Cringe with DnD Doge. In today's episode, we have a few stories that I just found baffling, such as a dungeon master putting Among Us and the Backrooms into a game of Dungeons & Dragons, a dungeon master that takes the idea of an open sandbox a bit too literally, and much more. But before we get into these stories, Ziggy has a request.
Komento, Doku Shitoroku Yoroshiku Wangeshimasu. Mujaretsu Kudasai. Why?
He's such a wise kitty. Y'all should listen to him. Anyways, with that said, let's get into these stories. The DM That Took Sandbox a Little Too Literally by Reddit user Impressive Elk 1192. The DM of this story is a friend of a friend. They were looking for a final player to round the game out, so my friend invited me, knowing I'd been looking for a homebrew game to join. I'm a forever DM, so I'll take pretty much any game. The game was pitched as a completely open sandbox. Unlike other games I've played in, his plan was to build the world around the characters, not the other way around. I was intrigued by this strategy, although I had a few misgivings. Session 0 rolls around, and it really is simply whatever we want to do. The only piece of world building we are given is that everyone hates elves with a passion, the high elves especially. I was planning to play as a wood elf, so I asked why, and the DM responded with a "haha, wouldn't you like to know, wink wink" kind of answer. He then says that what the high elves did was a mystery that we'll have to solve within the game. I'm cool with that, but also point out that people must have a reason for hating them, and if it's a mystery no one knows about, then why do people hate high elves? Even a bogus reason would be okay, but a reason would be nice to know. Nope, he doesn't want to tell us. I talked to my friend about it, and we kinda come to the conclusion that he just doesn't have any plot yet, and that's why he's not telling us anything. I mean, we kinda signed up for that. So sure, whatever. We were sure that we'd find out more later, and I roll up my little elf character. Session 1. We're apparently boarding a boat. Cool. We hadn't planned for that, but sure, roll with the punches. Where do we board the boat? No idea. Boat's name? No clue. Where is the boat going, or why is it going there? It doesn't matter. We're on a boat. And now we're being attacked by a kraken at level 3, before we even get to speak to any of the NPCs other than the captain. We inevitably lose that fight, and the boat sinks, leaving us as the only survivors on a beach. My character stands up, and she sees sand and the ocean. There's some wreckage on the beach, but nothing to write home about. We open all the crates within 5 minutes and find some carrots. Then we look around and we see sand for as far as the eye can see. We walk around for a little bit and see some rocks. Thinking it might be an oasis or something, we head for the rocks, and they're just rocks. We look for something else and we see sand. We have a ranger in the party, so they try and use their survival skills to pick a direction for us. We end up wandering northeast, and for the next 2 sessions, all we see is sand. I could sort of see this setup working as a survival game, except we have Goodberry and Create Water, enough wood to make campfires for a while, and one of the players picked up a tent, so food, shelter, and water are taken care of. The players are cool people, so we managed some fun roleplay, but we're starting to run out of things to talk about. After the session, I pull the DM aside and tell him that he's not giving us much to work with. He tells me that he's given us a whole world to shape as we see fit. I tell him I like his group, but I need something to do other than look at sand, and he promises me that next session will be more interesting. It's the following session, and drumroll, we find 2 trees. That's it. They're not magical. Their water source is underground and inaccessible, and they have no coconuts on them. But we might be getting close to the edge of the beach. Out of character, the DM says that it should only be 2 more sessions of desert, and I tell him that I won't be around to see it. Yep, that sounds really boring. Though I wonder how those sessions went. Sure, OP said that there was some roleplay between characters, but as far as walking a certain direction and it lasting for a whole session, did the players just sit there in silence? Or was it the DM saying that all they see is sand every 5 minutes for a few hours, with silence in between? Then for the DM to tease that something will happen the following session, only for the group to just come across 2 mundane, ordinary trees. Talk about leading OP and the rest of the group on. Though what got me is that the DM said with certainty that it would take 2 more sessions to get anywhere. It's like when a video game says that it's open world, but the world has nothing in it. So I don't blame OP for deciding not to waste his time with that game anymore. No D&D is better than, well, I mean, that sounded like no D&D. Let's move on. My first campaign and introduction to That Guy by Reddit user Guy from Void. I thought it might be worth to share my experiences with a particular player who brought havoc upon all they touched. Introduction. I've been interested in trying out D&D for a while now, and a friend of mine, we'll call him Scott, offered me a spot in their homebrew world via a text game. I eagerly accepted, and they helped me make a character with some signs that I'd consider weird now, but didn't then as a new player. For instance, artificers and bards were banned, a 5-page backstory was required, mounts and pets were banned, the highest stat auto-transformed into an 18, and the lowest auto-transformed into a 5. Campaign 1. I rolled up a paladin, and apparently, our backstories didn't end up mattering, as all of our characters had amnesia from the very beginning. Well, I mean, it could have been that the characters would eventually regain their memories, and that could have been weaved into the narrative, but I digress. We spent the first session in a locked room for an hour with no input from Scott, until we finally got out to the town and gotten ourselves some gear to go across the pond for, no reason. It was the following session, and 2 players got banned, one for talking about the wish spell, and the other for out-of-game stuff. Okay then. Nothing eventful happened until we found a kobold artificer who just got exiled from his group of friends, since they suck. We go and find the group of friends, who are obnoxious idiots who shoot up animals for fun. We engage in combat, and find out that one of them has an antimatter rifle. We were only level 3. We finish up the encounter, with me and the sorcerer being down before we could even do anything, and our kobold buddy heals us up with mass heal. It took me about a year when I got into DMing that I find out that mass heal is 9th level. Well, maybe the little dude had a magic item that could do it. We head into town, and looking for cash, take up the offer of a shady guy in an alley to participate in his game. We expect either a saw trap or an arena for each of the challenges presented, but nope, it was a game of Among Us and chess. When the 3rd round opens with combat, our wild magic sorcerer eagerly uses Scorching Ray on the enemies, which is when Scott says, "Oh, hey, I homebrewed it, so wild magic is always a programmed random occurrence, and I have a homebrew table that I roll behind the screen on." So, one fireball centered on everyone later, we find out the challenge was for a kids' game show. Okay, what the hell even is this game? The shady guy was trying to raise money for an orphanage, and we just ruined his reputation. Of course. We escort him to a cleric before we head to a tavern to drink, and the kobold buddy is insulted for his sexual orientation, and our wild magic sorcerer tries to use a spell to calm the situation. Another roll on the table, and a giant anvil drops onto the tavern, killing everyone inside, except us as we manage to get out. And then the tavern exploded. Are you sure that the DM wasn't just messing with you all at this point? Though finally, we hit level 4. Time to pick a feat. But Scott said, "Yeah, I pick your feats for you depending on what I think you need." The DM picking your feats when you level up? No, at this point, you gotta ask yourself, why am I still in this game? After a shopping session, we enter a shady chase, and our group is separated, with our cleric and thief going into the literal backrooms for the next 2 sessions, doing literally nothing. Wait, the backrooms? Like the popular creepypasta videos. Okay, I'm sure of it now. This DM had to be messing with y'all. Level 5, let's go. Extra attack, and we find a steed. Oh, never mind, I forgot mounts are banned. Me, our druid, sorcerer, and mastermind enter a fight with undead, only for them to be immune to physical damage. Only the sorcerer had any way of harming the undead, with us being regulated to tanking for them. I talked to Scott about how I feel these are problems as a player, only for them to reply passive-aggressively, "Oh, I thought you'd gotten a +1 longsword. Also, welcome to level 7. At that point, pretty much everyone stopped showing up. Really, that's the point when everyone quit. Not the Looney Tunes anvil destroying a building? Campaign 2. Our thief from Campaign 1 decides that he wants to host a campaign. We'll call him John. John was a brand new DM and invited me, Scott, and a few others. The first session in, Sorcerer, the same one from the last game, tries to lie to the guards, and when he's apprehended, Scott actively aids the guards in attacking him. The second session in, we're trying to infiltrate a guard tower of an oppressive town, only for Scott to completely refuse lying, sneaking, or deceiving in any way. We begrudgingly continue planning a way to get in without triggering a rule of Scott's character, only for them to whine about how we objectified them and leave. Okay, this dude is just getting ridiculous now. Objectified how? John's campaign ended shortly after, for other reasons, like a PC death and new players, which is when we found out Scott uses a completely homebrewed class and a subclass when homebrew was strictly forbidden. But wouldn't the DM have noticed something was off by looking at the character sheet? This whole thing sounds like a cluster and a half. Campaign 3. I decided that I should try my hand at DMing, and after a rocky start, we're having a lot of fun. We're down a few players, so Scott asks if he can join. I'm inexperienced and have a no same class rule, though despite us already having an artificer, they roll one up anyways. Great. I mean, Jesus, then why did you let him? I ask for a backstory, and he says, "Basically, they had rich parents who disappeared." Thanks. They meet up with an NPC's patron, an ambivalent kraken. There, each character got to ask one question that the kraken would answer to the best of her ability. Most of the characters got good questions in. Our reborn ranger asked how to be revived. Our artificer asked about the locations of the mysterious gun parts that they'd found so far, and more. Scott asks about their parents, which would be a good question if they had given me anything to work with. After the session, I'm looking through sheets to plan encounters when I see that Scott's HP is way higher than it should be. I ask about it, and apparently they've been using rolled HP when we've been using fixed, and said that they apparently rolled max HP on all 3 of their rolls. But I can't see it, of course, because they did it physically. I didn't even ban them. They just left in anger after I asked them about it. Closing words. Scott, if you see this, you have hard stuff going on in your life, and I understand and respect that. However, stay the F out of any campaigns I'm in, please. Well, that player does sound unique. But if they kept doing things that bothered everyone, why did you keep putting up with it? Like, why would you even consider allowing him in your game after all of those previous grievances, and then still let him in and use an artificer if you specifically requested that he not. Sure, Scott sounded like a headache, but at a certain point, you have no one to blame but yourself for allowing it to continue, especially when you're the one in charge. Man, this story gave me a headache, but that's nothing a little dose of Kidium can't fix. There, that's a bit better. Now let's get to the next one. I really didn't enjoy my last campaign. By Reddit user Rover6428. I don't know if I'm overreacting, but it really stuck with me, even though it's been a couple of weeks since I played. I am also pretty new to DnD, so I haven't had many campaigns to compare it to. Anyway, I really didn't enjoy playing my last campaign. The DM pitched it as a sandbox game where we could explore the world and stuff. However, for the whole time, we ended up doing completely miserable work for very hateable characters. All NPCs were complete dickheads, and I would probably have killed them, but most NPCs were unleveled, so they could one-hit KO our team. In the first quest, we went to a party to steal some random thing, and ended up somehow killing everyone in the party for no good reason, and I still don't know what we stole. The next session, we went to an island, where the DM tried to show how tough everyone was, by them being complete a-holes to us in every interaction. Then came a story fight, where we somehow were supposed to fight this overpowered guy as a level 2 team. For reference, I hit nat 20 plus 7 to hit on my weapon, and still missed. Anyway, I got one shot killed, and the rest only got away by action disengaging and fleeing on their first turn. Apparently, the DM made it obvious that we were supposed to use the environment to kill him, but I still don't know what he meant by that. The session after that was filler, but we were hired to clean a sewer and he tried to get me to commit genocide. By that time, I was really uncomfortable with where the game was headed, so I left. Well, things escalated quickly if the DM gave a quest to clean a sewer, and that resulted in genocide. Also, the fact that the DM threw in an enemy for a level 2 party, where a 27 didn't hit, is just outrageous. Especially seeing with OP's one attack should have hit with a nat 20, since that would have been an auto crit. So yeah, OP did the right thing in leaving this campaign. This DM just sounds like he didn't know what he was doing. And when you combine that with a DM that just wants everything to be as edgy as possible, that makes for a nightmare game to play in. Moving on. DM made me steal a homeless man's pubic hair. By Reddit user Representative Ad 406. Sorry if this is boring. I'm not great at telling stories. I was living in a city far away from my friends and family, so a D&D meetup group seemed like a great way to get my fix after many years away from the hobby. I showed up to a couple of sessions, and each time got a random character and played with a random group, and it was a total blast. However, one session, a DM showed up that I hadn't seen before. When she went up to the group organizer, they immediately had a conversation about how he was sorry about what happened last time, and hoped they wouldn't show up again. I thought, oh no, someone must have been a bad player. But I misjudged the situation. The session started normally enough. We were adventurers paid by a large company to clear a town of werewolves. She guided us to a metal shop where we learned that werewolves could be hurt by copper, and so we asked to buy some copper. But the shop owner would not give us any copper unless we completed several strange tasks. One player had to travel to a local bar and give the madam there a foot massage, and the DM spent the entire time flirting with them. Another player character had to deliver a letter to a woman. When the letter was delivered, it contained a beard, which the woman glued on her face. Weird, but okay. And then my character. I had to go steal pubes from a homeless man, glue them to my chest, and shout, "I'm George of the Jungle," in the middle of a bar, Like, I don't know if she just hated me for some reason, or if she had no boundaries at all, but like, that's disgusting, right? Like, who just comes up with that and thinks it's a normal thing to ask a stranger to roleplay? Anyway, I used a disguise kit to fake the hairs, but the rest of the session felt pretty awkward after that. And I talked about it with another player afterwards, and he agreed that it was out of line. To me, that session was a lesson about how important it is to talk about consent and agree on rules for what the roleplay will include. And also, as a current DM, how I should never ask players to do anything disgusting or humiliating enough as to ruin their fun. Well, that was part of the lesson anyway, and it was reinforced by the next session, my last with that group, thank God, in which I was forced to roleplay anal sex as multiple NPCs tried to seduce me, and another player tried to convince me that I had gotten her pregnant. But that's a different story. Well, first, the pubic hair part was pretty disgusting, and I can see how a player wouldn't like that in a game if they were expecting one with a bit more of a serious tone, instead of what sounded like to be a joke game. In which case, just don't go to that DM anymore. Overall, while a bit odd, it's not the worst that I've read. Though the real horror is what OP mentioned at the end there. That sounds like that story should have been posted with this one as a little bit of a preamble. That is never okay to do to a player unless you talked about those themes being in the game beforehand. And I totally get OP not playing with them after that happened. Seriously, session zeros are a thing for a reason. But that is all the time we have for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.